Many so-called experts paint a very bright future for the electric vehicle industry, as they see the EVs as mythical saviors who will solve all our problems. High-ranking officials in the industry, on the other hand, are not so enthusiastic about this whole idea. Today we will disclose 7 shocking reasons why the Ford CEO turns his back on EV production. Number 7. Chinese batteries. The transition from internal combustion engines to electric powertrains is even harder than the transition from horse-drawn carriages to first cars. It certainly sounds counterintuitive, but it is the cold, hard truth. In the old days, every player in the automotive game had almost equal opportunity to achieve manufacturing prowess. Almost every country had internal resources and necessary manpower to start the automotive industry. However, now we have a big problem. How big? Well, almost 2 billion people big. Of course, we're talking about China, the global superpower in EV battery manufacturing. Many of the world automotive giants get their batteries from this country. Ford is not an exception. They get the batteries from a company called CATL. And one does not need to be a rocket scientist to spot a few major problems with this particular practice. First of all, we are talking about probably one of the largest and most American companies depending on the likes of a Chinese manufacturer. Keeping in mind the tone America and China is communicating with one another in recent years, this sure looks like a recipe for disaster. Secondly, even if everything was all right on the political side of things, let's not forget that China is a giant country with a giant population and a giant appetite for cars. So first and foremost, they will look after their own interests. So being completely dependent on a foreign manufacturer is not the wisest decision one could make. Ford understands this, and now tries to start their own battery manufacturing, licensing the technology from the Chinese. So, problem solved? No. As China dominates not only the battery manufacturing side of things, but also the global supply of raw materials. If it looks like a situation with no way out, believe us when we say that it certainly is. With the Chinese controlling the world's lithium supply and long-lasting political tension between these two superpowers, the outlook for Ford's EV plans is not so bright after all. Number 6. The price of batteries. This leads us to reason number 2. The production cost of batteries wouldn't be cheap even in the most quiet and peaceful time, yet alone now. It is estimated that around 500,000 pounds of earth need to be excavated to gather all the necessary rare metals to produce just one average EV battery. Certainly, a behemoth like the Ford F-150 Lightning uses a slightly above-average battery pack. We are no experts in excavating in this channel, but excavating 500,000 pounds of dirt sounds impressive. And the process doesn't stop with the excavation, as EV batteries do not form underground waiting to be dug up like potatoes. The ore needs to be refined, involving a highly toxic process. Then the product is transported to a battery production plant, usually on a giant bunker fuel burning ship. Then the finished batteries are loaded on another giant ship and shipped halfway through the planet to be put in a highly environmentally friendly EV. Probably this is the main reason why the battery pack on an EV might cost from a quarter to even half the price of the entire vehicle. Number 5. Quality problems. But of course, after all that trouble, the excavating, the extremely toxic refining, the shipping across the world, you'll pay a lot of money for a product that is as reliable and long-lasting as the planet itself. Well, not quite. Recently, Ford had to recall some brand new F-150 Lightnings and even completely halt the production due to defective battery cells. The issue let itself be known in a spectacular fashion when a brand new pickup, just off the production line, did catch fire while charging. More than 18,000 units had to be recalled. And while no harm or injuries were reported, this does not put confidence in the buyer's mind. More so when recently the internet is filled with photos and videos of burning EVs. Ford is a manufacturer known for producing the notorious Ford Pinto in the 70s. A vehicle with design so bad that, if there was an accident where the vehicle gets hit in the back, the fuel tank would rupture. The consequences were a fuel leak and a fire. And did we mention that due to poor design, the doors would jam? Of course, the CEO of Ford and all the board of directors would rather prefer that the story wouldn't repeat itself, because it did cost the company a significant amount of money and did almost irreparable damage to reputation. Number 4. The price of manufacturing. Talking about money, it will cost the car makers billions of dollars to transition from internal combustion to EV manufacturing. Money that at this day and age, manufacturers do not have. Although a classic ICE vehicle and EV look almost exactly the same from the outside, except for the ridiculous names and overuse of blue and green colors. In reality, they are a completely different breed. Converting an ICE vehicle to electric power is not as simple as ripping out the gas or diesel engine and putting an electric one in its place. It's far more complex. Manufacturers need to find a place for large, heavy, and cumbersome battery packs, while not compromising interior space. The drivetrain needs to be completely reworked to accept the electric engines. So in the end, the whole chassis needs to be redone from scratch. This means that manufacturers need to reinvent the car from the ground up, sometimes at the cost of building a brand new factory exclusively for EV manufacturing, just like Ford did with its electric vehicle center. With a shocking investment of $700 million, this factory is responsible only for the F-150 Lightning. Let's not forget that Ford has and plans to introduce more EVs to the market, and this will bring even more expenses. Number 3. Shortage of experienced workforce. But the factory and robots alone cannot produce a car. Despite the automation, people do some of the most crucial work, from vehicle design to assembly. And EVs, being radically different in technology from their internal combustion counterparts, require a completely different approach to the manufacturing and design issues. Enough to say that the demand for skilled technicians working with high-voltage electric lines is higher than ever in the automotive industry. Good quality workforce is hard to find, not only due to the fact that a lot of youth do not want to do manual labor jobs, but also due to the fact that high-skilled workers are in high demand in other branches of the industry. To attract those workers, a manufacturer has to offer a competitive salary. If you employ around 170,000 workers like Ford Motor Company does, every dollar results in quite a substantial amount at the end of the year. For a company that had a $2.1 billion net loss in 2022, it is a big issue that the new CEO has to solve, and we do not think he will increase the EV manufacturing to spare money. Number 2. Less profit. Especially when he knows that EVs are less profitable than standard internal combustion vehicles. The first wave of EV buyers bought it mainly for one of two reasons. They wanted to be at the forefront of technological advancement with the latest high-tech toy, or they wanted to look like they care for the environment, or sometimes both. However, these first EV drivers are now satisfied, or sometimes not, EV owners and drivers. Those buyers were willing to pay an exuberant amount of money for the privilege of testing a brand new technology. Therefore, car manufacturers charged accordingly. Now, EVs are mainstream. More so, government and eco-fanatics go out of their way to convince drivers to go electric. Well, it wouldn't be a great strategy to do so by upping the price. Yes, EVs got cheaper over the years, largely due to the scale of the economy. You produce more, so you can sell it cheaper. Also, vehicles are more affordable due to government programs subsidizing part of the cost. But with less and less stimulation from the government, the burden of keeping EV prices competitive falls on the shoulders of manufacturers. And it is a well-known fact that it costs way more to produce an EV than an ICE vehicle. So probably the recent almost $9,000 price drop on the F-150 Lightning is not an omen that good times are coming. Number 1. Conservative buyers. Just recently, we mentioned the first wave of EV buyers. The problem is that along the way, it will be harder and harder to attract those buyers who do not think that an EV will save the planet or do not care. EVs got a long way from the first generation models everybody was laughing at and have become fully capable vehicles in their own right. Yet they still have some drawbacks like long charging times and in some areas lack of charging infrastructure. Some people, especially in rural areas or colder climates, simply do not trust an EV to work in harsh conditions or in remote areas. So the EV is mainly a means of transportation for city dwellers who ride short to medium distances and have access to charging stations. Also, the horror stories of non-working chargers, hour-long queues at the charging station, and range anxiety do not help sell EVs either. Studies show that 25 to 50% of EV buyers go back to traditional ICE vehicles. Probably that is why Ford currently limits the EV range to two models, Mustang Mach-E and F-150 Lightning.